Okay, good morning. I'm Spanish, so for me this is the morning. I'm gonna try to talk very slowly, which is hard for a Spaniard, but just for the sake of the translation. So today I want to talk about breaking the local barriers, going what we call going global, scaling out the company. So I'm very passionate about this thing. I travel a lot, and specifically I've been coming to Poland, and most of you already know me. I've been coming here to Poland for 2 years now, and it's hard for a lot of Polish companies to start thinking global. And it's kind of like local mentality, which to some extent is very, very similar to what we experience in Spain. So I'm going to give you a small intro of who I am. I'm glad to see that most people lost their ties and their suits today. I don't know if it was the cooking or it was the drinks yesterday night. That is very good. So I normally wear my hat, so I'm not wearing the hat today. So I'm a computer scientist, I'm a developer. I've had many companies. My first company was called INSI, and we did semantic analysis with that. Then I started working for a whole year at the largest social network in Spain. I learned a lot of things there. And when I came out of working there, we set up, it's not a startup accelerator program, we like to name it like a pre-acceleration program for startups in Spain that was called Silicon Valley. But even though it was based in Spain, everything was in English, and we had an international crowd of startups coming to the program. At that moment, I became partner at a VC firm out of Spain. It's called Pre Ventures, and the evolution of what we did in Silicon Valley was called Startup Bootcamp Europe. And right now, Startup Bootcamp Europe is probably the largest startup accelerator program in Europe, operating out of 5 different cities within Europe. Once I actually got fed up with that, because the thing is, I'm a developer. So one day I woke up and I said, how did this happen? How did I turn out being an investor? Suddenly one day I woke up and said, I'm investing money in companies. I would rather prefer building the companies than investing. So I dropped all this stuff and I started, my new company is called Press42. And Press42, while we worked there, it's kind of an evolution of what I was already doing for many years through the venture firm, through Silicon Valley, and through Startup Bootcamp, which was helping startups connect with the media. So it's interesting because when you go to the US is a massive market, but it's fantastic because they speak the same language. Essentially, if you try and get in touch with specific publications in the US, it's very easy. If you make it to like 4 specific publications and you don't raise money, it's because you're doing something really wrong, okay? But if you come to Europe, Europe has an extremely fragmented market. The major problem we have is we have 10 different languages and many different cultures and countries. So trying to reach out to the media for a lot of startups is extremely hard in terms of, hey, if I want to go international, I have to go to Germany, I have to go to Berlin, I have to find the right person there that writes about startups and reach out to them. And I have to do the same in France, I have to do the same in Italy, I have to do the same in the UK. Because there is no global publication in Europe. So in Press42, we thought about this thing and we said, hey, what if, being the engineer I am, said, what if we create a platform to actually do this automatically? Like find out all the right persons in all these different countries and be able or allow companies to reach out to a global audience immediately. So I'm very much involved in even though I've done many things, from scaling, developing, mentoring, investing, right now we're extremely focused on the communication side of the startups. So one of the things that I keep seeing with many startups is they end up being local in essence and in reality. So people start this company and they start operating locally. And when I ask them, like, why are you doing this locally? And they say, like, well, you know, it's straightforward. It's easy. It's easy because you know your market. It's easy because you know your people, you know how they work, you know everything. So, hey, why not? And people don't understand that in reality, going local, while sometimes there is a strategy to it, in most cases, And we were talking yesterday night about this. In most cases, it's more about fear of going out than really because you thought that you have to be local. That being said, there are specific businesses that are local by nature, and you need to be locally there. But there are many others, specifically in the internet, when you're working with human problems that you have them anywhere in the world. Going local, sometimes it doesn't make any sense. The problem again is you're always in your comfort zone, and when you try to get someone out of their comfort zone, they don't like it at all. And specifically, if you tap into the language problem, that's a big issue. So the first thing I see when I talk with companies about this is, we don't need to go global. Most companies don't believe they need to go global. Hey, we have the Polish one, 46 million? 40 million. 40 million inhabitants in the country, good economy. Why would we need to go outside? The other thing I see is, hey, we're going to go local first, and then we will scale out, and then we will go global. The problem with this, and I see it over and over, is that companies that say this always stick to local. They always say, yeah, we're local now, but then we will go global. And then it's 2 years later, 3 years later, no, we're still thinking about going global. Like 4 years, we're still thinking about going global. So the problem is about the mentality, it's not the strategy. You know, they kind of cheat themselves thinking that they're actually going to go global. For me, the main issue in many of those cases is language. Language matters. And the reason why a lot of companies actually don't go global is because a lot of people don't speak good English. If we start from the base that English right now is the global language, specifically in the technology industry. Most people don't feel comfortable enough talking in English to an audience, and that's the reason why they don't want to go global. It's not because they don't want, it's just like, it's scary, because you don't know the language. And yesterday we were talking about this thing. We had one of the companies in our portfolio. There's two guys that come from a tiny village in the southern part of Spain. And if you've ever been to Spain, you know that Spaniards don't speak English either. And they didn't speak very good English. And specifically one of them. But he was so good on stage. You put him on stage, he was fantastic. So I came to him and I said, you know what, I want you to go and present your product. He was scared. He said like, no, I don't speak any English. I said like, I don't care. Find a way to learn the English words that you need to say to go and present this in English. And he said like, but really, I cannot do this. So out of 4 words he said, 3 of them were in Spanish and 1 was in English. After 6 weeks, he did the same presentation, and it was out of 4 words, 3 were in English and 1 was in Spanish. But it was hilarious because he had such a good flow in the presentation that you couldn't realize that he just used the Spanish word until pretty later on. You go like, did he just said this in Spanish? But he was like boom, 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 and people were enjoying it so much that they didn't realize that he was using Spanish in the middle of the presentation. So my point with this story is that you need to start forgetting that you don't know English, because in reality, most of you have more than enough English to do good presentations and present what you're talking about your startup. The reason why it's important right now to go global is essentially has to do with the economy. Yesterday we had a fantastic talk. I'm unable to repeat his name. For me, it's extremely hard, but you know who I'm talking about. And he gave a very good presentation on the economic situation, on the financial crisis, on how capitalism works, how all the markets are extremely connected with one another. And that's a problem. That right now, all the markets are connected. You cannot claim anymore, hey, you know, we have our healthy economy in Poland, and we're not going to be affected by anything. You know, we don't have recession. Well, you will be affected in many different ways. Doesn't mean that you are going to get into a recession, but you are affected. And any good investor actually knows that the best way to invest is to diversify your investment. So there's always this image of all the eggs on the same basket. Well, it's funny when it comes to companies. So when you do investment, investors do that. They invest in very different niches so that if one of them goes down, at least the other ones are safe. When it comes to a company, actually, few companies think in the same way. Hey, what about, we have customers from different markets. If one market goes under, if we're doing business in Greece and it goes down, or in Ireland and it goes down, or in Spain and it goes down, hey, you know, at least we still have France, we still have Germany, we still have Japan, we still have the US. Okay, so it's a way of diversifying this stuff. So right now, there is no option. I remember 2 years ago, I gave a talk, also talking about going international. And I said, hey, you have the option of starting local and then going global. Nowadays, you don't have the option anymore. If you really want to make it, you need to go global. The thing is, with the whole crisis, you have dwindling economies. That means that as time goes by, people have lower purchasing power on each of these countries. That means that if you're trying to buy something, to sell something here, in the next few years, people won't have the amount of money they have now. Or at least that's what's happening in some of the countries in Europe, in Spain, in Greece, in Portugal, in France, in Germany, even in the UK. So the thing is, hey, as time goes by, this is going to be more and more important. The problem with being local is the following. Except if you live in China, or in the US, or in Brazil, or in India, if you think about it, many countries are too small. They're literally too small. I was recently in Estonia, and I asked the guys, I was in Tallinn, and I asked them, oh, so how many people live in Tallinn? And he told me, they live 100,000 inhabitants in Tallinn. And I said, like, oh my God, I think I have more friends on my Facebook than you have in the city. Yeah, and he was like, you cannot do any market with that. I mean, you can sell stuff there, but not if you want to go big. If you want to go big, that's not a market. It's just too small of a country. And the same goes with many other countries. We're lucky that you guys live in Poland that has a lot of big population. I live in Spain that we also have a big population. So in that sense, it's kind of masked that the country is not that small. But the problem with those countries like Spain or Poland is that they have small markets. It's maybe not about the size of the country, it's about the size of the market. In Spain, when I talk with companies, I say, when they ask, they tell me, no, we're going to start selling stuff in Spain. I go like, why? There is no market in Spain for technology. Oh, no, yeah, there is. I said like, no, you're talking about 1 million, 2 million, 5 million euro market in technology. What are you talking about? That's not a market, okay? So it gets to a point where you realize that even though you live in a big country, it might not be enough as a market to make your business grow. And finally, there's kind of a consequence of trying to do business in a small market or in a small country. And this is a quote that a friend of mine told me recently, and I realized he's very right. He says, if you give peanuts, you will only get monkeys. And this has a lot to do with investment. When you invest 50K on a company, you're going to get monkeys. You're going to get a company that's not big enough. And while it is true that in Europe we are way better at spending money than in the US, because we're used to doing bootstrapping, we're used to being very efficient when it comes to capital, but still, we are investing too few money, small amount of money in the companies. If you go to the US, the same company that might be working in Europe, you bring it to the US, and you will raise probably 10 times what you raise here. I mean, a company that raises 150K here, for example, there's this company called Lemon. They raised 10 million for a mobile app. Okay, I'm going to repeat this. 10 million for a mobile app. Okay, that's insane. And while you can discuss if you need that amount of money or not, the thing is that having that war chest of money allows a company to do things in a massive scale, which we cannot do in Europe. Again, there's also the notion that grass is always greener on your neighbor's lawn. Okay, and for me, this is a massive complex. A lot of people think, hey, we need to be here because this is, well, reality is sometimes, if not most of the times, it's way harder to sell stuff in your local market than if you sell it outside. And the reason is your own people are a lot more critical about technologies that come from your own country than if they come from outside. And I've always seen this. So you're a Spanish company, or you're a Polish company, you're trying to sell this stuff in Poland, and they would go like, oh yeah, another Polish guy trying to sell their stuff, blah, 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 this is not good. An American company comes to Poland, hey, we have this stuff, oh my god, they're American, they come from Silicon Valley, this is awesome, let's buy it. You go like, when actually someone sits down and from a rational point of view starts analyzing both offers, they go like, this doesn't make sense. These guys are actually way better. They deliver a better product, a better experience, a better performance. But just because they are from Poland, it seems it's not good enough. There's always this feeling in specific countries, and I've seen this in Eastern European countries, and in places like Spain is the same, that you're never good enough. That what you're doing is never good enough. And that what comes from outside is always better than what you have. Which I think is wrong. Because you guys, and this is the reason why I keep coming to Poland, you guys have some incredible and amazing companies here. But the thing is, you just don't believe that you have. And do you remember the X-Files show? There was this quote, they said, I want to believe. You guys need to start believing that you are actually good, because you are. And then you have the problem of the Skype effect. This, for me, was really impressive recently when I was in Estonia. I get to the airport on my way back, and I switch on the Wi-Fi. And so I connect to the Wi-Fi from the airport, and the first page that I get in the airport is, welcome to the airport Wi-Fi sponsored by Skype. I don't know if you know, Skype is an Estonian company, or half Estonia. And for them, in the national airport, they had like, welcome to the airport Wi-Fi, sponsored by Skype, an Estonian company. And the next thing they had was like, hey, if you're looking for a job, click here, jobs.skype.com. And it was like, oh my god, this is amazing. And when you talk with people in Estonia, the number one thing they tell you is, hey, we want to create a company like Skype. So what we're lacking in most of the local markets or countries is a role model. A company that has made it big, so big, that it's actually attracting and driving youngsters and teenagers to do more stuff like this. And you don't have this in Poland, we don't have that in Spain, you barely have it in other countries. In Germany you have some stuff, in the UK you have some stuff, in France some stuff too, but in general there is not a big role model to follow up. In Silicon Valley it's like, now it's Facebook. Everyone's like, hey, we want to do the next Facebook. 5 years ago it was, we want to do the next Google. And in 5 years it would be, we want to pull an Instagram on you. Whatever, you know? But they have role models. They have companies that have gone so big that people want to do the same. And while you can discuss if that's good or bad, reality is that is what drives ecosystems. That's what drives other companies to make it big. So one of the things I think it has to change is the mindset. There has to be a mindset reset. Yesterday I was talking with someone and I said, the problem is when you're building a company and the first thing you think is, I'm going to do it in Polish first and then I'll do it in English. Just that act, even if you think about doing it in English, reflects that you're not thinking locally, because your first option is always the local market. So when people ask me about my company, and they ask me, do you do any business in Spain? I'm like, why would I do any business in Spain? I mean, there's absolutely no wording in Spanish in my website at all. But the thing is that I didn't even think about that. I just did it in English because for me it was the only thing that made sense to me. So there has to be a mindset reset for a lot of people to start thinking in a different way. Yesterday we were talking about teaching in university, this kind of stuff. There has to be a change in the way people think about doing business internally from the very early stage. So as I always say, I don't like to be a critic without giving some advice on how to do this. Again, for me, I think the number one thing that you have to have for companies, you have to think globally from day one. And Rafa and I have been talking a lot about this. Really easy steps and really easy notions like, hey, you're starting your company, create an international advisory board. That's free. You just go out, talk with international people that can help you out. You don't even need to go to another country to do this. You can just Skype them, email them, and get them on board. So, but this means that you're thinking globally directly from the very beginning. One of the things that it really pisses me to know in companies in Poland, for God's sake, put an English name to your company. Okay, it's extremely hard for us to even start pronouncing a company with a Polish name. I'm sorry, but Chufcha, what the fuck? It's really hard to say that. Okay?
It's Chufcha.
Yeah, no, my point. The thing is, it's really hard. So use an English name because that's the global language. Please, English website. I was recently here in Gdansk for the Olery Awards, and one of the winners of the Olery Awards was Brand24. And I said like, oh my god, finally, someone that's using an English name. You go to the website, and everything is in Polish. Fuck, come on, I want to try it. I'm in the jury, I need to see what you're doing, and I cannot use it because it's in Polish. Yeah. That being said, I use the automatic translation, but that's not the point. That's beyond the point of doing this stuff. Then again, what really fascinates me about a lot of companies here in Poland is, what is it with getting .pl domains? Do they give them for free or what?
Yeah.
No, really. I mean, I can't believe that I see like brand24.pl. What the fuck? Didn't you have like money to buy the .com or what? Really? No, I don't know. Why do you keep getting the .pl domain? It's good if you have a local business, but it's not good if you want to have an international startup. So again, we were talking about this, International Advisory Board. This is very easy to do. It's very, very easy, it's inexpensive to do, and it gives you a global vision of what you should be doing. This is probably a touchy theme. Okay, I've been talking for this past 2 days with a lot of people about this notion. And some people agree, some people don't agree. I think that you should keep in mind the idea of what I'm trying to say here, but is drop the Soviet complex. So, as I was saying before, what I'm seeing here, and I don't see it just here, I see it in places like Estonia, in Romania, in Hungary, is there is this inner feeling, and it's not, let's say, rational in a way, but there is an inner feeling that because you were under the Soviet Union, and specifically, I have to tell you, some people know this, but I actually did research and I read the history of Poland. I come here so often that I wanted to know what was your story. You guys have one hell of a story, by the way, like always being conquered by the surrounding people. So, but the thing is, there's a lot of people, a lot of countries that come from the Soviet bloc, that when they got out of, when the Soviet Union was dismantled, they have this feeling that they're inferior to everyone around them. And it is true, and I was discussing with people yesterday about this, it is true that it's not rational. I mean, I talk to people here and they say like, I don't feel like that, I know we're good. But it's more like an internal feeling that when you go outside, the dialect, the way you actually talk and interact with people, shows this. It shows that, hey, we're from Poland, this tiny country, like at the end of Europe, you know, like over there at the end. And the way you actually speak and transmitting the, let's say, the feeling you transmit to people when you say that, is that you're inferior. And we were talking about this when you guys were in the US. People in the US actually, or in most cases, and correct me if I'm wrong, are mostly about the appearance, about how you project yourself when you get to the room. And people will judge you extremely fast there. That means that if you go into a meeting with a VC, and you say, hey, you know, I come from this tiny country, it's called Poland, they will automatically not rule you out, but they will feel that they're in a superior position to talk to you. And so, while it's this, you can discuss if it's the Soviet thing or if it's part of the history of Poland, and it's not just Poland. I see this in Spain too. We had a massive civil war, we had like 10 years of authoritarian government until we transitioned to a democracy. So you still feel this in Spain. In Spain it's always the same. It's like, no, we cannot do this. The French can do this. Fuck the French. Okay? But the French can do this shit, but we cannot do this. Okay? Spain has one of the most wonderful wines in the world, but then you go to France and they give you this horse piss that they call wine, and they go like, this is awesome wine. You go, fuck you, this is not good. Why can I get a Spanish wine? Okay, we're really bad at marketing our stuff. But it's very similar to what happens here in Poland. So my advice is start thinking, start believing in yourselves, because you owe it, because you are good. You shouldn't go into a meeting saying like, hey, you know, I'm from Poland. No, this is my business. Do you like it or not? You shouldn't care where it comes from, what I've done before. The only thing that you need to judge is the quality of your work. That's about it. And this is especially targeted to Poland, my friends. Meritocracy doesn't work. I'm an engineer. I really value things that are super cool. So this is what happens when you're an engineer. You're doing your company, you're doing your startup, and you're like, oh my god, this is so awesome. I just coded this for 2 weeks in a row, and this is the most incredible piece of code ever. And then you show it to your wife or your girlfriend, and she will go like, so this really took you 2 weeks? Can you make something like more? And you're like, fuck you, like this is awesome. And she goes like, yeah, but it's just a line on the screen. Like, yeah, but behind it there's this amazing stuff. And she goes like, I don't care. Okay, and this is just a parody, which actually is pretty true. It happened to me several times with my wife. But the thing is, engineers keep thinking that the value is in the quality of the feature set that you have in your product. And while it's true that that's important, that's not the selling point. So most people think that you have the most amazing product with a fantastic feature set, you put it up there and people will buy it. That's a typical engineering thought. Hey, this is cool, people will buy it. Well, I'm sorry to tell you that markets don't work like that. Markets work on the perception side of things. So what happens, and what history has shown us, is that people with worse technologies, but with better perception of their brand, like IBM, were able to sell shitty computers to others when there were better computers in the market. And that's just the story over and over and over again. So when I talk with Polish companies, I keep telling them, refocus your communication, refocus how you think about your stuff, because this is not about the product. Most companies, when they compete in Poland, they compete on feature sets. And I know, do we have, oh, there you are, 71 and Brand 24 just got in this massive fight because I have more features than you have. Like literally, and how long was it? A week ago?
Yeah.
A week ago. Okay, and this is the actual narration every single time. Like we have more features than you have, and that's how we compete. Because we have this killer feature that's better than yours. Well, that's not how it works. iPod, iPhone. Those were products that had inferior capabilities, inferior feature sets than their competitors, and they actually totally destroyed the market for their competitors. So finally, think big. Okay, think outside your borders. But this is not a two-step process. It should be the first thought that comes to your mind is, okay, how we can have Germany, how we can have France, how we can have UK. Reality is, and most people that have done this will tell you, it's easier to do that than to sell locally. Thank you very much. I don't know if someone wants to do a question. We still have a little bit of time, and I know if someone wants to ask a question. I know this Polish audiences are always really, really hard when it comes to questions, because you're very shy. You don't like to be the one to break the first question. So, come on, someone, be brave. No one? Really, really? No one? Okay. Thank you very much, guys.
Więc podobnie jak w poprzedniej prezentacji też chciałbym zachęcić do współpracy z Aleksem. Generalnie rozmawialiśmy już o tych międzynarodowych radach doradców i traktujemy to jako narzędzie budowy dodatkowej siły w spółkach portfelowych. Stąd też dobór osób do takiej rady jest bardzo istotny. Jesteśmy w stanie stosować system wynagrodzeń w postaci udziałów w Stanach, jest to tam od 0,2 do 0,5, u nas ten Ci doradcy zazwyczaj chcą więcej, zakładamy, że to jest w granicach 1%. Tak od razu sprowadzając do praktyki, jak to działa, żebyśmy wiedzieli, że to działa. Działa to w taki sposób, że robi się tą radę 5 osób, 3 osoby, 2 osoby, które w naszej opinii są w stanie wzbogacić projekt, są w stanie coś wnieść do tego projektu. Nad tymi doradcami warto się bardzo długo zastanowić, bo czasami jest tak, że się zaproponuje komuś to doradztwo, za chwileczkę okazuje się, że jednak mam lepszą osobę do tego, więc jest to istotne, żeby się dobrze zastanowić, kogo potrzebujemy w tej Radzie Doradców. Natomiast niewątpliwie dobrym narzędziem są udziały i szczególnie w projektach startupowych jest to narzędzie, które powinniśmy się uzbroić. Tutaj mówię w szczególności o funduszach seedowych, że niewątpliwie chcielibyśmy też tą merytoryczną otoczkę spółek budować poprzez rady doradców. Przy pewnej masie spółek z większej ilości funduszy powinno to tworzyć swoisty ekosystem doradczy wokół grupy kapitałowej, który niewątpliwie jest w stanie wzbogacić wartość merytoryczną i możliwości tak naprawdę rzeczywiście wsysania tych naszych spółek do tego globalnego nurtu. Dziękuję serdecznie.